All right, page 344. Shh. 344. Tristan, if you bought the okay. So yesterday we learned about, obviously, how Greek philosophy, we've been talking about Greek philosophy for this past unit, about how Homer, he kind of defied a lot of what the Greek philosophers were teaching in the day. Let's move on to Greek philosophy with Socrates here. We briefly went over this, saying how Socrates, he was unhappy with a lot of the beliefs during that day. He started philosophy all over again. Remember, he was the one who said, what is the best way to live? That was his life's goal, and always having all of these philosophies on maybe we're not teaching what's right. Maybe the Greek mythology of the day is there's a lot of flaws in it, and there were. Obviously, the gods, little g, of like Zeus, Apollo, all of these people, they had a lot of human-like fatal flaws and human characteristics that made them not perfect, like our God is. So that was what he was teaching. It was the best way to live. A lot of these Greek philosophers, they weren't completely Christians like what we would think of today. They didn't truly believe that, God was the one true God, but then they were thinking about different, different philosophies other than Greek mythology there and what ancient Greece and those Greeks believed in. So if you guys look on page 345, Socrates' death, from a larger book called Phaedo. This was written by Plato here. We know that Plato was one of his students, and we saw that Plato was to become one of the greatest philosophers of all time. And with Plato's death, he just kind of gave an account as to how the last few moments of Socrates' life went down. If you guys look in the first paragraph, it says, after Socrates had finished speaking, Crito asked, well, Socrates, what charge have you to give your friends here or myself about your children or any other matter in which we may be able to serve you best? He's basically saying, what are your final words that you have for us? And he just says, just what I always tell you, Crito, Socrates replied, nothing more than usual. If you guys look at, skip down a sentence, it says, if you neglect yourselves and do not choose to pass your lives, as it were, in the track of what has been now and on former occasions, you will gain nothing by it. No, not even if you bind yourselves today by ever so many and ever so sacred promises. He's basically saying here, continue on with what you've been taught. Continue on with what I have taught you and what you believe in. Otherwise, if you guys look at the second or the last sentence there, it says, not even if you bind yourselves today by ever so many and ever so sacred promises. He says, if you don't continue by these promises that you have lived your life by, that you've been studying by, it says you will have gained nothing by it. It's basically going to be all in vain. So throughout this story, they basically were trying to convince Socrates to wait a little bit. We kind of went over it briefly, but who remembers how Socrates died? Okay, good. He drank hemlock juice. That was the execution during the day, is to drink some hemlock juice. And he basically was giving his final words to his friends there. And if you guys turn the page 346, and it kind of gives you how his friends obviously were super sad, and they were actually weeping. And then while they were weeping, he basically told them, like, why are you weeping? This is exactly why I sent my wife and my kids away. I didn't want any weeping there. So they kind of were like, okay. So then they were crying quietly. And then in the end, obviously he dies. If you guys look at the very last page, or page 346, the last sentence there, was in my judgment out of all his contemporaries that I had ever known knowledge was the best natured, besides being the wisest and the most just. And that's what we see how his friends thought of him. And he has this, a student. His name was Crito. And he was actually, this Crito guy, he actually was really, in my opinion, it seems this work kind of made him out to be a little clingy, because he was the one that was like affected the most. He was the saddest, and then he was basically just heartbroken. And so Socrates was telling the other guys there, they were basically saying, when he said, when I die, please tell Crito that it's just my body that's in the ground, and maybe that'll bring him some comfort. So they were all trying to look out for Crito there. But Socrates, we know, is one of the wisest philosophers to ever have lived. And then Plato, one of his students, was following in his footsteps there. Go ahead and turn the page to page 348. Again, with Plato, this is the two images from the Republic here. I know we didn't go through these we didn't read through these in depth, but if you guys notice, there are two images from the Republic. There is the ship and the cave. You want to highlight those two images from the Republic. And let's see what the image about the ship is about. If you guys look in the background, it kind of gives the application for you, okay? Plato's Republic tells the truth about pagan society. The gods who support it are not real. This kind of truth would destroy a society built on a foundation of merely human authority, and thus Plato saw a real contradiction between truth and society. So again, we know that he was a philosopher, always trying to think about what was being taught in that day and kind of seeing the flaws there. The world is like a ship, talking about the first image about the ship. So here's the application. The world is like a ship without a pilot, Plato said. The sailors who have never studied navigation reject the true pilot, the philosopher, who is wise about the heavens and thus skilled in navigation. By persuasion or force, they attempt to get the ship owner to let them command, to let the world command. That's kind of like their day and age. The world wants to rule, obviously, the world. The people want to rule themselves, and they don't want to listen to hard truth. And that's very applicable to us today, because sometimes the truth is hard, and we don't want to listen to it. But we know that the Bible it's clear on a lot of principles here, a lot of principles that are taught nowadays. Okay, I won't go into detail about a lot, but you know that there is a lot of philosophy out there on what's right and what's wrong, and sometimes it can get all confusing and overwhelming if we don't know exactly what the truth is. And thankfully, as Christians, we do have that truth, and we're able to seek that out for ourselves, and we're able to discern and use the brain that God gave us to know the differences between right and wrong. So that's the world like a ship. Let's read about the world like a cave. Okay, the world is like a dark cave inhabited by prisoners who spend their lives playing games about shadows on the wall. The philosopher is taken from the cave up into the world of reality. When he goes back to the cave, the dwellers when he goes back to the cave dwellers to tell them the truth about the things, they try to kill him. With both of these stories, the images, the ship and the cave, who do we see that is coming to the rescue, class? Philosophers. Okay, so this is what I mean, where they didn't truly believe in the God that of the Bible. They didn't truly believe in that, but they knew that the gods that a lot of the Grecians served had a lot of fatal flaws. But I'm not saying that the philosophers were the ones who believed in that God. They believed in philosophy, obviously. In order to have perfectly just society, Plato teaches that philosophers would have to rule. So that's the flaw with these philosophers, is that they truly believed that they were the ones who knew everything, and that they were the ones who knew how to govern things, and they were the ones that had all knowing. But obviously, if you guys look on page 349 in the background, the last paragraph, or the second to last paragraph, Plato's truth that the gods of the city are not real was only partial truth, and it would destroy society because it would take away the foundation of morality and put nothing in its place. The Bible's truth that the God of heaven is real and that he hath spoken builds a society, for it is the whole truth, and it puts morality, true morality, on a rational foundation, Jesus Christ. So again, with philosophers, if their truth is only that the gods that you serve are not real, and we have to put in philosophy and truth in its stead, obviously that there's going to be some sort of disconnect there and some sort of reason to how a society can't last if God is not in that picture. Okay, so go ahead and turn that page as well. Turn to page 352. Page 352. The last thing we'll talk about today is about Alexander. Actually, second to last thing in literature. Alexander, and if you have read anything about Alexander, I don't know if Mr. Coral has ever, have you guys learned about Alexander the Great in history class? Well, Alexander, we know Alexander the Great. He was one of the greatest conquerors of all time. If you guys look in the background, he was actually a student of Aristotle. His father, Alexander the Great's father, was Philip II. Philip II was obviously a ruler of Greece. And his father, Philip II, was a conqueror. And we know Alexander the Great to be one of the greatest conquerors of all time, even out conquering his father. And in this excerpt by Plutarch about Alexander, he basically just gives an account of a lot of things about Alexander's life. No. Uvia.
Really? No.
There you go. Yeah, you guys can get your prizes. Okay. No worries. So, huh?
I didn't get my prize for the first day when I turned it in.
You have to have reached a certain.
I did. I had 2 pieces on there.
Okay. Well, then you can go ask the office after. So Alexander, what was I saying? Oh, this gives an account of Alexander's life, because obviously Aristotle, he was a philosopher. He was the teacher for Alexander. Actually, Alexander was kind of those guys that was really egotistical. He wanted to build up his own reputation. He actually cried that his dad was conquering a lot of nations, because he was like, if my dad conquers a lot of nations, then there's not going to be enough for me to conquer. And he wasn't happy for his dad. He basically was just like, myself, give me, like how can I, uplift myself? But we know that Alexander, he became known as one of the greatest military generals in history, because he did conquer the Persian Empire. Up until that point, the Persian Empire was one of the biggest empires in the history of the world, and it was conquered by Alexander the Great, making his culture or his empire one of the greatest in the world. And then Alexander the Great is credited for bringing a lot of the Greek culture to the Middle Age. And actually that's a huge deal, because Greek was such a huge part of the culture back then. Everybody spoke Greek. Everyone was practicing Greek culture. Everyone was practicing democracy, which was a Greek influence there. A lot of people knew Greek, and actually the New Testament was written in Greek. And so by Alexander the Great bringing Greek culture into all the parts of the world at that time, or that Middle Eastern world, because that was all the world to them, by Alexander the Great bringing that Greek culture to them, that kind of paved the way for the New Testament to be written there. Alexander the Great became the hero that he desired to be, and because the Greeks thought that heroes could become gods, he came to think of himself as a god and wanted everyone else to accept him as such. But however, we know that Alexander, he was mortal, he was human, and so that didn't last long. And at the age of 32, he actually became ill and died after drinking a lot at a banquet there. So we know that he is mortal, and we can't put our trust in human follies there. Okay. Go ahead, and also, last but not least, we'll talk about the Bible and independent of all the other books, page 358, as we finish out this unit. Here, just saying now, you do want to make sure that you do study this portion, okay? Because there may or may not be an essay question about how the Bible is independent of all other books. So it kind of gives you reasonings here, okay? It is independent of all books. It imitates no other books. It copies none. It hardly alludes to any other. And one thing that I really appreciated that this story said, or this work written by George Gilfillan, is that the Bible is not only for the people to read about an almighty God. It's not just a book that mentions how God is omnipotent and omniscient and there's majesty and his majesty and he created the world. But it's not just a book that says that. It's a book that, Adrian, what are you looking at? Okay, why are you looking down in your lap? Your head has been down for the past, just saying, okay? Don't look like you're on your phone, okay? So not just that the Bible is talking about all the magnificence and splendor of God, the Bible can also be for the humble people and the poor and the lowly. It's not just for kings. It's not just for riches, okay? It's for everyday common people, and I think that's awesome how anyone can access the Bible if they truly are seeking for it. So there's a lot of things here that you can probably apply to what the Bible does for people. It's unlike others. It points differences, being these amongst many more. It talks about how, if you guys look at the third paragraph on the left-hand side of page 358, it talks about how God's creation there, we see his magnificence and splendor. It talks about the Niagara, the Himalayan hills, okay? How those are beautiful and that they are mentioned. Obviously, the Niagara Falls and Himalayan hills are not mentioned exactly in the Bible, but we know that we can see God's magnificence there. We can see that it's a true thing from the beginning of time with Adam, and it says it proves itself. It's sincere, answers a lot of questions. If you guys look at the bottom of page 358 on the left-hand column, the last paragraph, it says, once more, the Bible, you feel, answers a question which other books cannot. This, the question of questions and the question of all ages, is in our vernacular and expressive speech, what shall I do to be saved? That's the question that everyone has been asking for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, not just us today. We see the Bible, how there's a story of a rich man or something that goes to Jesus when Jesus was on earth and says, Master, what shall I do to be saved? And back then it tells the story of how people would sacrifice to Jesus because they looked forward to how God would come to earth and then be that sacrifice for us. For us, we look back on the account of how God came to earth and died on the cross for our sins, but it's a book that answers that life question there. How shall I be peaceful, resigned, holy, and hopeful? How happy can I be when this cold cloak, the body, has fallen off from the bounding soul within? There's another question there. How can we find happiness that lasts for eternity? A lot of things on earth, they pass away, but the Bible answers how we can have lasting joy, lasting peace. We saw how the Iliad and the Odyssey were books that influenced a lot of people during that age, but they were nothing compared to the Bible. There was that truth in the Bible of how it satisfies the souls of millions, whereas, the Iliad and the Odyssey, they were just kind of that temporal, fictional story, and whereas the Bible, all the accounts of that are true. All the stories, all the hero of the stories. Guys, quietly come in, okay? The Bible says, or the book says, that it is superior to all the other books that have been, or are, or shall be on earth. The Bible, while bearing on its summit the hues of higher heaven, overtopping with ease all the human structures and aspirations in earth, but not of it, communicating the omniscience and the recording the acts of the omnipotence of God. Like I just said, it communicates how God is all-knowing. It tells the acts of an almighty God, yet anyone, the Bible says, or the Bible can be read by the poor, the lowly, the crutch of the aged, the pillow of the widow, the eye of the blind, the boy's own book, the solace of the sick, the light of the dying, the grand hope and refuge of the simple, sincere, and sorrowing spirits. So the Bible is for everyone. So, girls, you just missed it, but on page 358 and 359, there's going to be an essay question on your final about how the Bible is applied to, and it's independent of all other books. So page 358 and 359, if you read through it, it'll give you a bunch of lists of how the Bible is different from all the other books. So make sure you guys mark that in your book. And so obviously today is Friday, so Monday we'll go over the authors and all the things we need to know for our final on Thursday. So make sure you guys are writing that down. Your final is Thursday over Unit 12. Your vocab final is May 25th over lists 9 through 12. So go ahead and take that out and let's review. No. Okay. Review for our vocab. So let's review lists 9 and 10. Did we review list 9 yesterday? All right, so let's review lists 9 and 10. Okay. I'm going to go through the words. You say the definition. Okay. Just to kind of jog your memory. Make sure you guys are starting to study now for your test on Tuesday. Okay. Number 1, abate. Number 2, abduct. Number 3, appease. Number 4, censure. Number 5, condole. Number 6, corrode. Number 7, divulge. Number 8, embellish. Number 9, enamor. Number 10, encroach. Number 11, feign. Number 12, perpetuate. Good. Okay, go ahead and turn to list 10. List 10. Page 82 and 83. Okay, number 1, arbitrary. Number 2, celestial. Number 3, culinary. Number 4, ecclesiastical. Number 5, exemplary. Number 6, guttural. Number 7, humane. Eight, integral. Number 9, paternal. Number 10, pristine. 11, saline. And then number 12, urbane. Make sure you guys mark the differences between humane and urbane. I think a lot of us got those two confused on your quiz when we took it. So make sure you guys are studying that. Tonight for homework, study list 11 and 12. List 11 and 12. Make sure you guys are studying on Monday. We will review all of the lists, so please come prepared so that we all can review for that. And then the last thing we'll go over is our grammar. So go ahead and turn to our unit about nouns. Let me pull out that paper for you, or that page. Okay, yesterday we talked about verbs here. So let's talk about nouns. Okay, just a review of nouns, class. What is a noun? Okay, person, place, thing, or idea. Give me some things that nouns can be used as within a sentence. A subject. What else? D-O, I-O, P-N, A-P, okay, O-Ps. So objects of the preposition, direct objects, indirect objects. All of those, yes, good. And a direct address. So all of those can be used as nouns. So go ahead and turn to page 120. Okay, so that is a noun there. We see common nouns. You don't need to know the differences between common nouns, proper nouns, all of those. I mean, it's good to know them because that's just basic of all basic things to know about grammar. But that won't be on your test on Wednesday there. Okay, so noun is a person, place, thing, or idea. So we just said, if you guys look on page 121 here, they could be as the subject. So when subjects are singular, what does my verb have to be, class? Singular. If my subject is plural, what does my verb have to be? Plural, okay? So you need to make sure that your verbs agree with your noun subjects, okay? Sometimes we can't really tell right away if something is singular or plural, if your subject is singular or plural. So you have to look at the context of your sentence there. So number 2 on page 121, singular subjects take singular verbs, plural subjects take plural verbs. Nouns ending in S are usually plural. Notice this, verbs ending in S are usually singular. So that's something that we could watch for. Go ahead and turn the page to page 122. Making verbs agree with nouns subjects here. In this sentence, if a sentence asks or begins with there or here, you must be careful to locate the subject and make the verb agree with it. So a lot of times the word there or here won't be a subject. Doesn't, isn't, wasn't are singular. Don't, aren't, and weren't are plural. Just pretty self-explanatory there. Titles of literary works are singular, okay, even though they are in plural form. For example, Pickwick Papers, okay? Papers is plural, the word is, but if it's in a title, we know it's the title of one book, so it is singular, okay? Number 8. The following words are singular, although plural in form. Mumps, measles, rickets, molasses, news, stamina. So make sure you're looking for those. Okay. Look at number 11 on page 123, rule number 11 there. That's something that we could definitely mark. Words that end in ICS. So like mathematics. Isaac, stand up. Mathematics, economics, dramatics, ethics. Okay. Those may be singular or plural depending on their meaning. For example, letter A. When words that end in ICS refer to a course or a study or a science, they are singular. So civics, mathematics, all of those are singular. When they refer to, or when they don't refer to a science or a study, they're usually plural. For example, gymnastics, okay? Ethics there. Economics, where his economics, that's not referring to, I know that's a class, so if it's referring to a class, then that would be singular. But in this case, his economics were responsible for his business success. That's talking about his actions, his principles, all of those. That would be plural there. Okay? Turn the page to page 124. Compound subjects joined by and take the what verb, class? Plural verb. And number 13 is something that we could definitely look at here. When a compound subject is joined by or, nor, or either, or neither, nor, the verb agrees with the nearest subject. So either or, neither nor. That was really complicated there. So for example, you look at the nearest subject that is closest to the verb. For example, either her helpers or the librarian is there to assist you. Class, what's the subject that is closer to the word is? Librarian, is that singular or plural? Singular, so that's why we choose the singular verb. But if helpers was nearer to the verb, the subject that is nearer to the verb, since helpers is plural, the sentence would take on a plural verb there. That's only with either or, neither nor. Okay, so make sure you're looking for those. Page 126, we saw that nouns can be used as predicate nominatives. Predicate nominatives always follow what kind of verbs, class? Linking verbs. Okay. What follow action verbs? Direct objects. You good there? Your voice cracked a little bit. Direct objects. Okay. So those follow action verbs. What are the objects that go in prepositional phrases, class? Stand. Stand. Okay. Objects of the prepositions, they go in obviously prepositional phrases there. Okay. All right. So now, okay, listen. Look at page 130. Objects of the complements, OCs. Okay. These further explain your direct objects. Okay. Page 130. Everybody, wait. Page 130. Okay. Objective complements is a noun or an adjective that renames or describes the direct object. Okay, so with OCs, we're not always going to have an OC, but if we do have an OC, it's always after the direct object. We elected Scott treasurer. It's not describing anything. It's further explaining who Scott is, or renames or describes the direct object there. Objective complements may be compounds. With diagramming, page 131, okay, on your test, you are going to need to know how to diagram clauses and phrases and know how to differentiate between if they are nouns or adjectives, okay? So make sure that you're looking on how to diagram adjective clauses and noun clauses there. I was talking about this with Maya yesterday, but if you learn the basis of where things go, then you should be able to diagram clauses and phrases. For example, if a clause or a phrase is being used as the subject, Amy, sit up, please. If the clause or a phrase is being used as the subject, okay, then if you know where the subject spot is on the diagram, then that should be easy for you. If you know where the DO is on the line there, then you know that the clause or phrase goes in the DO, because noun, clauses, and phrases can be used as subjects, they can be used as direct objects, they can be used as anything that a noun can be used. So you guys told me some things that a noun could be used as, right? Subjects, DOs, PNs, okay? So just like those can be used as any of those, like nouns can be used as any of those uses, so can nouns, clauses, and noun phrases, okay? So who can tell me what a noun clause would be? The verbal term. Is it if it's not a participle, because we know participles are being used as what, class? What do participles do? Okay, they describe, they're adjectives, so what would be the noun clause there? Starts with a G. Gerunds, okay? So with gerunds, what do they always end in? ing, okay? So we're looking for gerunds there. Go ahead and turn to page number 134, okay? If you're still a little iffy about gerunds, then you can mark this page and look over it, okay? Gerund phrases consist of a gerund plus any of its complements or modifiers. It can be used as the subject. A gerund can be used as a PN, an OP, an AP, anything that a noun can be used as. Guys, stop talking to each other. You're standing because you're tipping your chair, but that doesn't mean you guys can talk to each other. Okay? Gerunds, and you guys probably need this review a lot more too. Okay, so I suggest you guys pay attention. Okay, so gerund phrases, they end in ing. They are used as the subjects, verbs in this sentence, okay? Look at your example. What's my verb there? Writing your assignments in a notebook is a good practice. Class, what's my verb in that sentence? Is, okay, who or what is? Class, what's my subject? Good is. If you just look at your sentence, okay? Good is that my subject and my verb? No. Good is actually describing practice. So that can't be my subject. What is my subject, class? Writing your assignment in a notebook. That's an example of how a gerund can be used as the subject there. Okay, so writing is my gerund. We know gerund, okay, that's a noun. So nouns can be used as subjects. Nouns can be used as PNs. Anything that a noun can be used as, we know that gerunds are there as well. Okay, page number 137. Page 137. Actually, look over at page 136. How do we diagram a gerund? On what, class? Stilts. But most importantly, on a stair step. Okay, so remember, kind of like how we do participles here, but rather than a line like this and then our participle is slanting. So this is our participle here. Okay, that's how we diagram participles. Right, with gerunds, they're going to be on a stair step here, and this is how you're going to put your gerund. It's still going to be slanting. Okay. Well, not participles, they don't go on here. But what's it called? That's how you diagram gerunds. So make sure you also mark page 136. Okay. Infinitive phrases used as nouns. Okay. What are we looking for with infinitives, class? 2 plus a verb. Okay. 2 plus a verb there. To tell people the good news should be our desires. Again, infinitive phrases can be used as nouns, so they can be used as subjects and all of that. Okay, diagramming infinitive phrases. This is also going with infinitive phrases used as adjectives. 2 plus the verb goes there, right here. That's how we diagram infinitive phrases. So mark that on page 139 if you don't know how to diagram an infinitive phrase. That's used as a noun. Okay, in adjectives, and we'll go over that more in depth on Monday. With adjectives there, they don't go on stair stilts, but they still are diagrammed that way. Okay, so make sure that you know the differences between nouns and phrases, or clauses and phrases. What do clauses have that that phrases don't, class? Subjects and verbs, class. We've been saying that for the last 2 weeks. What do clauses have that phrases don't? Subjects and verbs. What do clauses have that phrases don't? Subjects and verbs. Okay, with phrases, okay, they're like gerund phrases, prepositional phrases, infinitive phrases. So they don't have subjects and verbs. Clauses do. Okay, so what are clauses introduced with, class? What was it? Not 2 plus a verb. What are clauses being introduced with? Relatives. Okay, page 140. Page 140. Everyone mark number 5. Okay. Noun clauses are introduced by, in this case, signal words. That, whether, if, who, whom, whose. If you're looking for these, then you can spot a noun clause. Okay. When we're diagramming noun clauses, what word floats above the diagram? What words? Does anybody remember? That, whether, and if. So the words that, whether, and if, they float above. So let's say you have everybody looking up here. Okay, so let's say you have your noun clause. Remember, we diagram a clause normally like a subject and verb here. If the clause is introduced by the word that, or whether, or if, it would go on the floating line above your diagram. Okay, only if it's that, whether, and if with noun clauses. With adjective clauses, you'll see how they differ, because in adjective clauses, they describe the, obviously, noun or the pronoun. But with noun clauses, the words that, whether, and if will be floating above the line there. Okay? All right, we're going to go into more detail on Monday, but make sure you guys are reviewing. If you have any questions about anything, write them down. Okay? Write them down, and then I can answer them in class if you're still iffy. Okay? I don't want, guys, I haven't dismissed you yet. Sit down. Okay? When we get to the test, I don't want any questions saying, what is this? What is this? What is this? Okay? Now is the time to ask. Okay? In class, Monday, Tuesday, study hall. Okay? If you guys are iffy about anything. Okay? I helped Maya yesterday with some things. I'm going to help again on Monday. If you guys want to come in and sit in, if you're still iffy on anything. But I do want to help you, or I do want you guys to do well. So make sure you ask if you have any questions. All right? Now you guys are dismissed.